Welcome everyone. Thank you, Niklas. So, Shopware Experience Studio. You all have seen the nice and crazy ideas in the keynote, hopefully. And maybe you also had time to play around with the experiment that our lab team already created, that you can already play around with also downstairs at the counters. My talk today will a little bit more back to the earth. So I will put the whole fancy stuff aside, and I want to talk with you a little bit more about, okay, what are we actually doing in Shopware to move towards that kind of vision, right? So where are we coming from? I guess a lot of you know the shopping experience feature as it is today in Shopware, and we got a lot of and gathered a lot of customer feedback. And there are a lot of different kind of challenges, some feature-wise, like people want to have a better what you see is what you get feeling. They want to have more elements, more ways to design their content and all the things, more page types, more parts of the storefront that they can design directly within the Shopware administration, and have some more publishing workflows and all those professional stuff that you would expect from a good content system. And then for sure there are all the technical challenges that we see from the developers, like, okay, how good extendable is the system? How can I bring in my own templates, my own stuff? How can I add my own business logic? We have this whole total cost of ownership debate, right? Template business logic is mostly very brittle during upgrades, and how can we ease that? And those are the things that we take seriously, and therefore we gathered a little bit and started to think, okay, what would be the next iteration of Shopware's content system? And currently we are looking in these 4 areas especially. And on the one side, there will be a new foundation, a new back-end system for this new content system that I will talk about a little bit. Then we want to also modernize the standard storefront to deal with those more modern content experiences. And then we will also talk about, for sure, about page builders and maybe the next iteration of what you know of today of the shopping experience feature, and also how we think about themes and designs and how you creatively create the content. Today I will talk mostly about the upper 2 things and maybe give you an outlook at the end of what is coming next. So Content API, this will be the whole backend system of this new thing, and the main idea is today we talk a lot about templating and Twig and stylings and JavaScript and all that stuff, right? And with all the debate, okay, AI can build this now, right? So AI can just generate HTML and stuff. And we also don't really want to have so much business logic within an actual markup language, right? So the first idea is to put this all more to the data level. So defining the whole layout of a store on a more data approach, which will in the end make it easier to upgrade, migrate, to deliver to different solutions, no matter what kind of front-end solution you want to choose. And it will also be very more compatible to AI solutions, because you can teach the AI models what kind of data structures you have, what kind of elements you have, and what kind of features you offer, and can create content more fluently also within an AI-supported workflow. So it will, when we first shared this with the community, so our approach, we really want to develop this very closely with the community, and I have talked about this already, as Niklas told, at the unconference, and we also shared a lot of things online, because we really want to make sure we build the right thing for you, together with you, something that is extendable. And there was a lot of conflict and a lot of critical feedback, I would say. Because people are known to this Twig blocks, and there's a block I can extend, and I add my HTML there, and I add my JavaScript. So it will be really a new mindset that we all have to develop together. So maybe before everything was in the markup, right? We have our twig blocks and all those stuff. And later it will be all data, like maybe this is just an example, JSON construct, right? So it will be freely nested elements that have a lot of different kind of features and things that I can add to it to build my whole layouts. And that is happening on the backend side. What the merchant will see is that he will just create a lot of cool stuff via the administration without ever diving into code. So that is the whole idea, because I also hear a lot of discussion about, okay, what kind of front-end technology to choose? Should it be composable front-ends or any JavaScript framework? Does it have to be React, Vue.js, whatsoever? Or a lot of people also saying, I want to have more native, more pure native web standards. It doesn't matter in the end, actually, because as we all know, AI will generate a lot of that code in the future. And what is more important is giving the merchant more control over the actual content and make it adjustable on the fly. And so the idea is that as we put more of this logic into the data layer, it doesn't matter actually which kind of front-end solution you choose, because if it can react to that data, you have a lot of possibilities to serve content in different ways. So what are the ideas that we planning to support with this content API? So we have different kind of loading modes. So you can load, for example, the layout only. You can load the layout with data. You can also fetch only partial parts of the layout and data, so that you can have different kind of caching strategies also, and kind of different ways how you actually load the content from a page. Then, as of today, you maybe know these kind of blocks in the shopping experience feature. In the future, there will be something similar, but it is also not these kind of physical template things, but it will be just partial layouts that you define as a partial layout part or block, and that you can then reuse in every other template. So you can define your own kind of layout sections that get reusable components on its own, but are just pure data that you just place and reuse in your templates. The other idea is also to make these blocks not be just a copy that I can copy into different kind of templates, but also have just a shared reference to just one single block. So I can edit content in one single file or layout, and it will update all the layouts it is used in. So that is also a feature request that we got quite often, that people want to have like certain layout parts placed in different kind of areas within the page, but they only want to edit it once, and it should update on all the different pages. What we have today as a concept, but what we really want to extend, is that all the layouts that you will build in Shopware are not just physical pages and you create one page after another. We have that concept of this data mapping today, so you can map certain entity data, like for example, if you're building a product detail page, you can map certain information from your product right within the layout, and then you can assign the layout to thousands of products, and the data in the layout will automatically update to what the data of the product is. And you can then vastly extend this also with custom fields in the product, like adding your own data that should be mapped. This concept will also be reintroduced to that system. Then we want to extend the capabilities of what is actually rendered, because in our idea, the whole store layout then will be served via this content API. So you won't not only be able to create the inner page template as it is today, but the whole store. For example, also defining the header and the footer. And as of today, the idea is to have general store layouts that you can assign on a more broader level, like for example, based on sales channels. Like you define a store layout for your sales channel, which is the outer frame of the sales channel. And then the inner page template from like a category page or detail page is loaded into that, which forms then in the end the full page layout. And this gives you the opportunity to directly create the whole store experience without code directly in the administration of Shopware. Then one big technical challenge was also today how these new content elements are created. So for the today's shopping experience feature, it is a little bit brittle because you have to create also components for the administration that your element is showing up in the administration correctly. And we took that feedback also very seriously, and we want to make it way more easier to create your own custom new elements for the new content system. So also their configuration will just exist in data, and the idea is that, for example, apps and plugins can just provide a manifest file with all the necessary information to define your elements, like config fields and everything, and the data that it needs to render correctly. And that is all you need. So in the end, there's just the config data of your content element and the corresponding front-end representation. That is all that you have to build for your new content elements. So that is the idea, that this gets way easier to create your own custom elements, and with there also vastly extend the possibilities of the system. That was everything about Content API, and the other thing that I want to talk about is the Storefront components. So frameworks like Composable front ends, they are already prepared for these kind of atomic kind of layout data, because they already implement these kind of concepts of a component system where you have atomic elements that freely nest into each other. And we also don't want to leave our customers that using the standard storefront alone, and we also want to modernize the standard storefront. And therefore, there will be storefront components also in the standard storefront. And with that, you can way more modular create new templates that can be reused and that can easily be used in this new content system. We are keeping it with our frameworks that we already use, and the Symphony ecosystem, as we are using Twig in the standard storefront, they have a concept for that, which is called Symphony UX Twig components, and that is what we will introduce to the standard storefront. So you have this kind of component-like element creation within Twig, where you can define properties and pass data to a certain template that can be used within that. So it has a clear public API of what kind of data it expects and what it will render. And it has clear extension points, like how can I slot content in the element. So it's very nice to use. We are already playing around a lot with it, and we like it so far very much. The Twig component itself is mostly targeting Twig, and so the templating itself. And we thought it would be nice to have a really component feeling in Shopware Storefront. And so we added a new handling for JS and SCSS as well. And we have a new build process that is powered by Vite, and also a new dev server feature, because I also know that a lot of the developers don't really like the current hot proxy mode for the storefront. And as this is very brittle, we also have a nice new dev server feature which has way more better developer experience than the current thing. One bigger decision that we made with the components is that we will have no longer runtime SCSS compilation. So maybe some of you might know that the SCSS has to be compiled on every theme config change, for example, and it happens during runtime, during Shopware, and can be slow, can be brittle because it's done in PHP. And we decided to not do that with the components. Some may be sad about this, but I think it's the right way to go. So you have all the stuff that you have available during build time, like bootstrap mixins and stuff you can still use. You can still use SCSS as you might like. The only thing that can't be accessed for sure is the thing that is changing during runtime, and that is the theme config. But we also have a solution for that. Shopware is now exposing all the theme configuration as native CSS properties. So that will be the way moving further, that you not use the SCSS variables for the theme configuration, but the native CSS properties. And I have to say it works really fine. And hopefully this will be also the general way moving forward. So apps and plugins will provide their build files with the extension, and they will be installed during the normal app lifecycle events as usual. We also built a very lightweight JavaScript component system that play along with your components. So often you might need some additional logic that you want to implement for your component, and it is a little bit similar to what you know of today of the JS plugin system in the Storefront, but it has way easier usage. So it will be automated. It has automated loading. So you have not to take care of where I have to place my script files and stuff. You just have to add the corresponding component JS file and it will be automatically loaded if your component is rendered on the page. The registration and everything works completely automated. So basically you just need to write the code for your component and everything works out of the box. We're using native ES module loading now, and this will also be the way forward for the whole Storefront in the future. So there will be an import map generated for all your components, and if your component is rendered on the page, the JavaScript will fetch dynamically on runtime only the JS files that are necessary to render the actual page. For the extension system, we added a new event system. So currently there is an event system for the JS plugin system, but it is working on the instance of each individual plugin and has not that good of a usability, I would say. And now there is a global event system. There is a global Shopware singleton that you can just use to emit global events. For sure, you can scope them, you can pass data with them, and that is the way how we imagine that then the components can talk to each other. So if you have several components that have to interact with each other, this is the way to go. We also added some additional form of events which we called intercepting events. So there will be some form of events that you can intercept and, for example, manipulate the data that is further used within a certain method. For example, manipulate request information before they get sent or something like that. So yeah, here's, for example, the buy button pre-submit event, and I can intercept that and maybe yeah, append some stuff to the form data or things like that. It works way better than overriding the JS plugins and stuff, so you have more cleaner extension points to yeah, actually change maybe also logic from certain components. Yeah, it's still experimental, but there will also be a nice component library with Storybook so that you yeah, can see all the components that are available in the Storefront. You can also provide the same documentation for your own components that you build so that you can see what kind of nice components there are that you can use. Yeah, and then the most important thing, what will happen when? So Storefront Components is finished. So the underlying framework will be released already with the upcoming release, which will be released, I guess, on Monday, hopefully. And so you can already start using them completely also out of the content system. So you can also use them in static templates if you like. So start using them, start adopting them. You can start using them in your extensions. So you can already a bit prepare for what is coming in the content system, and maybe then your elements are already ready to be exposed also later in the content system. I didn't talk about the page builder because that is something that we now want to look into. You see the experiment, play around with it, and yeah, that is something that we will share in the next month. So watch out for review bazaars and things and information into that. And we have this kind of discovery phase first because we really want to make sure that we get this thing right and that we also give you the opportunity to give feedback and participate in the development of that. then the actual implementation will happen. So the actual customer-facing features, I guess, won't come before next year. So yeah, be prepared. One thing that I want to add is, because a lot of you will now think, okay, cool, a lot of new stuff. How does that work out with the existing stuff in Shopware? Because we also got a lot of feedback from you that, yeah, don't add more breaking changes and don't break the storefront again. And we took this very seriously. So our idea is that the new content system and everything that we build will be just added, and nothing of the existing templates on the shopping experience feature will be changed. So this will be a completely new thing, and there will be first features available at some point. And the idea is that you can then transition to this new system in your own pace, depending on what kind of extensions you use, because maybe also the ecosystem has to develop more stuff for the new system. So yeah, there will be a time frame and where these both systems will coexist for quite some time. And I could imagine that, for example, customers starting building some pages with the new page builder tool and based on the new content system, but maybe some of the older pages they keep on the existing templates. So that was the idea why we also wanted to modernize the standard storefront. So we didn't want to left anyone alone. That you have some more fluent time to also migrate to this new thing, so you can play around with it. And if you like the features, start using it. If you want to keep your old templates as they are, also fine, go with it, right? So, yeah, as I said, storefront components, Shopware 6, 7, 11. My son liked this Shopware version a lot. He said 6, 7, 11. Yeah. So we have documentation already up in the docs. Have a look, get familiar with Twig components and everything we provided there. So we provided comprehensive documentation. You can scan the code. And we also have a prototype up and running already. There is a GitHub discussion online. So on the Shopware repository on GitHub, there is our discussions tab where we discuss certain technical solutions, and we provided a lot of information on how you can test out this prototype for a category page, which uses some of Twig components and the content system behind it to render this page. And we are updating it from time to time, so you can also see progress there. And yeah, discuss with us, be part of this. This is your chance to actually take part in this development, provide more feedback, and let's make this a cool thing. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Philipp. Before we start with the Q&A, because we have a little bit of time, who knows what the hobby of Philipp is? Few, okay. So you are snapping pictures of birds. Maybe if you catch him after the talk, ask him, because most of the photos he's taking are described as incredibly beautiful. Anyway, so I mean, I'm just telling the truth here, not trying to earn points. But before we start with the question, Michael will have a microphone, and if you raise your hand, he will go to you and you are allowed to speak into the microphone until he takes it away. But you said there will be a transition phase, like where we can use both. Is the now current version then deprecated or discouraged? Can I switch that off if I have a store where I don't want to have it at all and only the new system, or is that not decided yet?
That's not decided yet. So it depends a little bit how fast the community and also the customers will adapt. And for sure, our goal is to create a system that is so attractive that everyone wants to migrate to it because they find it nice and sexy to use. So that is the goal. And depending on how the community and how the feedback is, we would see, okay, when would be a good time frame to deprecate the old stuff and fully move to the new system. Yeah.
Okay, so it depends on you. Amazing. Do you have questions to Philipp about your future? No, it's also difficult to get to think of questions on the spot, but I think you will be around for a little bit. I mean, you're working here, you can't run away. Okay, so then we will cut this short. Remember this face if you have any questions about birds or your future with the storefront. And there will now be a break until 4:45 p.m. and then you and my colleague Soner will talk about removing friction from your dev setups. So 4:45 p.m. next talk. Thank you, Philipp.